All right, so we'll get started with our prep webinar for Advocacy Day. We'll start with introductions until we can figure out how to share our screen with you.
Welcome to the webinar.
My name is Hikma Sherka, and I am the Public Policy Research Assistant at YDEC, or Youth Development Executives of King County. I'm here with David and Michaela, who will also be introducing themselves, and they are with Schools at Washington and SOAR. I'll start with, I guess, introducing YDEC and who we are / what we do. So YDEC is a coalition of over 110 youth-serving organizations. They do services like mentoring and any other youth development programs from ages 5 to 24. Yeah, and that's YDEC if you want to introduce Schools at Washington.
Sure. David Beard here, the Policy and Advocacy Director at Schools at Washington. So we're a statewide intermediary that supports expanded learning opportunities. And we do 4 main bodies of work. We quality improvement, professional development. We're a grant maker in 3 ways, and then policy, advocacy, and systems building. And then Michaela.
Hi everyone, I'm Michaela Wright, and I'm the Youth Voice Organizer for SOAR. SOAR is an intermediary as well. We all are, and our mission is to uplift community voice. So what that means is we work in early learning and youth development as well, and I'm the youth development piece for SOAR. So we do a lot of youth leadership development and youth organizing and movement building. And in our early learning work, we do a lot of coalition building and supporting the work of other agencies.
Cool. So YDEC, SOAR, and Schools at Washington are sponsoring our Advocacy Day for Youth Development and Expanded Learning Opportunities, which will be on January 15th, which is next Tuesday. And we're super excited to have you all coming. And if you have not registered for that, please make sure you do. Again, welcome to our prep webinar. This is everything you ever wanted to know. So for this, I guess the setup of the webinar, it's scheduled until noon, but I don't think it'll take a whole hour. We wanted to make sure that we made it as simple and as digestible as possible. So we will go into the 2, I guess, pieces of legislation or policies that we'll be advocating for on Advocacy Day, which are the DCYF Youth Development Work Group and Career Connected Learning, and we'll go into the, I guess we'll talk about them a little more in detail, and then we'll let you know what to expect for the day as an advocacy day, and do some trainings on how to craft your message. We will have some time at the end for questions, but we'll also be answering questions as we go along. So if you have any, make sure you type them, and we'll try to answer them as we go through the presentation.
Great. So why come to Advocacy Day? What's the purpose of this? Hopefully, since I'm assuming everybody on this webinar has registered, you might know. But just as a reminder, really what we are trying to do in Olympia is give policymakers a vision, and give them a vision of what youth development and expanded learning programs are. Giving them, hearing from youth themselves, from providers, from other stakeholders as to why these programs really matter, and what the importance of after school and the summer are for children and youth, for growing, for building relationships with youth, and for building relationships with other kinds of adults, finding their voice in culturally responsive environments, all those sorts of things we really want policymakers to see. They hear from a lot of different stakeholders, both during session and out of session, and they need to hear from us. A second piece is giving them a reason to care about these programs and funding these programs. One thing that we often hear is, well, that's not a state responsibility, or that's a parent responsibility, or we need to fund this, that, or the other first. And what we always say is, for many youth, particularly youth that are facing different barriers, they need different spaces, places, and faces to really grow and excel, and sometimes their family unit or the school itself is not the place where that alone is going to help them. They need something else. That something else might look different depending on where you're at and what their needs are, but that is a really important part. We talk a lot about pipelines in Olympia, the educational pipeline and of early learning to K-12 to higher ed, and I like to say ELOs and youth development are the insulation to that pipeline. So building a bridge to their interests. Legislators have all kinds of interests based on their districts, what committees they sit on, and just who they are as people. So getting to know them and coming down to Olympia, and it's not just them getting to know you, it's also getting to know them and trying to build a bridge to what they care about. And finally, at the end of the day, why is everyone coming? Because we want more resources for kids and for programs. Whether that's financial or whether that's better policies or better strategies, they need to hear from us. So I'm going to turn it over to Hikma to talk a little bit about what is youth development.
Cool. So Sarah Terry from YDEC has put together a 2-pager on what youth development is, and I've also put a link on the PowerPoint to a page that defines what youth development is. And I forgot to mention earlier that after this webinar, we'll be sending an email with a link to a recorded version of this and all the documents that we'll be discussing today. So you will get a copy of the youth development definition in your email and in the packets that we will be providing on the day, for our Advocacy Day. So just to sum it up, youth development is, it has been a buzzword recently, but it's supposed to be a unifying principle. It's just an approach to engage young people within their communities, schools, organizations, peer groups, and families in a way that enhances their strengths and provides them with the resources they need to reach their full potential. So David mentioned earlier that whatever that support is could mean different things to different young people, but this youth development approach is meeting young people where they're at.
Great. And so what are expanded learning opportunities? There's definitely a Venn diagram between youth development and expanded learning. Expanded learning tends to be the difference mainly is just the amount of time. Those programs that tend to be longer time of the week or of the year tend to be more considered ELOs, whereas youth development can be a little bit broader than just that, including mentoring and other kinds of support services. So ELOs include after-school programs, school-age childcare, summer learning, and then, again, some youth development. And really what these programs are doing is trying to build skills, whether it's academic, social-emotional, or other career and life skills, is really what they're doing. And you see these words at the bottom. We did some message testing with the Rates Foundation 2 years ago, and this is from youth, what they got out of it. It nurtured them. It provided them a safe place to be. It illuminated different things, whether that was a career pathway, or whether that was an interest in STEM, or whether that was being able to use their voice. It illuminated different pathways for them. And then finally a catalyst for them to grow and to try new things. So that's really when we talk about ELOs, that is what we are talking about.
Cool. So these 2 things are generally what we are advocating for on Tuesday. And I wanted to give you guys a little more information on what to expect for the day. So we have breakfast at 8:30, right? 8. Oh, I guess breakfast starts at 8. But we will officially start our Advocacy Day at 9 a.m. We'll start with a welcome. We have a few guest speakers. We have legislators and youth speakers, and then we'll break out into different groups to do our advocacy training, which you guys are getting a first glance at right now, and then we'll have closing, and we have scheduled your meetings for you if you have registered online. So you'll have those. Most of them should be after our closing, and the State of the State address is unfortunately on the same day, so it'll be a little hectic in Olympia, but we will be in the Columbia room, and and we'll have more information in the email that we send out. But this is generally what to expect for the day.
Yeah, and part of that information we'll be sending out, I think you already have some of this, but it's like parking information, which parking can be challenging in Olympia, but there's lots of parking and shuttles and all sorts of options. If you have questions between now and then, we'll have all of our contact information, as well as Sarah Wagner here, who's working with us on this as well. And again, we will be providing breakfast and lunch and snacks, so you should not have to worry about food for the day. So the core piece of coming down, of course, is meeting with legislators. And just a little bit about what that looks like. So we're kind of moving into our messaging side of things. There's 3 legislators from every legislative district. There are 49 districts in the state, so there are 49 senators and 98 representatives. So 1 senator and 2 reps for every district. Most of you signed up for the district where your program is located, which is great. Some of you may live in a different legislative district, and you can email us, or the morning of, we can figure that out and expand our map and how many people we can possibly meet with. But we want to get as many legislators hearing our message as possible. So as Hikma said, we're setting up those meetings for you. A little bit about logistically how that's going to work is when you come in that morning, we will have a sheet for you that will show the time and the room numbers for each of your legislative meetings. When you meet with the legislators, you may be meeting with the legislator themselves, or you may be meeting with their legislative aide. And there are many reasons why you might be meeting with the aide. Legislative schedules are very hectic, so sometimes they can have to change at the last minute. It's possible that the legislator's in a committee meeting pretty much all day, so that makes it challenging for them. I will say, though, the legislative aides, having used to have been one, can be a very important person to get to know and influence as much as the policymaker, because those folks are the ones that have the ear of the policymaker. They're the ones that are going to show them the different emails, that are going to let those calls in, that are going to help set up the site visits outside of session. So they're very important people as well. And sometimes you might actually be meeting with both. So just kind of what to expect logistically. It's important to remain flexible and open. A third option might be if we can't get a meeting scheduled with either the aide or the legislator, it would actually be going to their office and just going up and doing what we call a lit drop. We'll talk a little more about the packets later, but actually going and introducing yourselves and the issue quickly at the desk. So it will be one of those 3 things, and we will have, again, lots of information for you. One thing that I'll note, I know last year there were some folks that actually knew some legislators or knew some aides and asked if they could go chat with them. I would say absolutely. We would love to know that, because we're trying to keep track of who's meeting with who, so that we can do follow-ups and be like, oh, hey, you met with Yakima Valley Farm Workers Clinic, or you met with YMCA. So we want to know that, so when we do follow-up, we'll know exactly who folks have met with. And now I'll turn it over to Hikma to talk a little bit about, and Michaela, to talk about how to communicate your message. And just a reminder, if you have any questions at any time, please enter them in the chat box.
Yes. So like I mentioned earlier, we really wanted to make sure that we simplified this as much as we could. Can you go to the next slide?
Yes, sorry.
And this is the guide that we will be using to communicate our message. I actually used this to do a training for a whole bunch of 4th and 5th graders who will be attending our Advocacy Day, and they thought it was very useful. So hopefully you will too. So we'll have Michaela go into the youth aspect, but I just wanted to kind of skim through it. It is really easy to understand, but if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know in the chat box. And again, this is another document that we will send out. So we did not create this. I think it was created by Planned Parenthood, but we adopted it. and made it our own a little bit. So it's supposed to be using your 5 fingers to make sure that you hit everything that you need to hit in order to communicate your message. So the thumb or the first finger is introducing yourself, letting the legislator know that you are a constituent or wherever you serve, whatever it is that you do. So this is just your time to introduce who you are. And then the next finger is introducing your issue. So why are you there? We obviously want you to be talking about youth development and expanded learning opportunities. So that is an opportunity for you to introduce that. The middle finger is why you care, which is interesting. But just explaining why that's important to you. And this is where the personal story comes in. So if you want to describe your after-school program or a youth development program that you run, or if you have a story of a young person, or if you have young people with you, allowing those young people to share their personal stories, that's where you would plug it in. And the fourth finger is pointing it back to the legislator and letting them know why this should be an important issue to them as well. So we can talk about, as you know, a state as a whole, or your specific district, or the legislator, whatever it is, just connecting your issue back to them and why it should be important to them. And the fifth finger is making the ask. So will you support expanded learning opportunities? Will you help fund blah, blah, blah? Whatever your ask is, that would be the last finger. And I think the last point is using your whole hand to shake their hand and say thank you for their time. That's as short as I can get it. But if you have any questions, again, please send them our way, and I'll have Michaela discuss the youth.
Yeah, definitely. So once again, I am the youth voice organizer for SOAR. So I spend a lot of time bringing young people into spaces that they're often not familiar with, but making sure to prepare them ahead of time, and also stepping back. And I know that can be hard for us as people who do work with young people. We want to share about the programs we're working in. We're very proud of the work that we're doing. But because we don't have a lot of time, and often legislators are very busy, it's important to prioritize that young person's story, because that is a good way to really get straight to the point and to really grab the attention of legislators, especially because young people do not often get a chance to go down to Olympia to speak to them. So it's a treat for them to be able to see these young people and hear their stories. So making sure to let the young people lead with their personal experiences. And so a good way to prepare them ahead of time would be to use this handy guide that Hikma introduced to us. Another way to help them would be just to ask a few questions beforehand, like talking to the young people and saying, just asking, why did you join this program? How has it impacted you? And why do you want other young people to have access to these programs as well? Just remembering to keep that at the center of this. And as long as the young people are prepared ahead of time to share their stories and are comfortable with sharing their stories, then it will be a powerful message and will definitely get straight to the point for legislators.
Mm-hmm. I do want to say that some districts have a lot more people than others and a lot more young people than others. So it is important to make your point, but also allow other young people to speak their truth and their stories, and then fill in the whatever is left. And I was going to say something else. Oh, about the young people that I was with. If you have a lot of young people with you, remember we are speaking to 3 different legislators or their aides, so you can have them split up. So 2 people will talk to one instead of, like David said, less is more. So instead of having all of the young people talking about the same after-school program to one legislator, you can have them divide up, and that'll make your message stronger.
That's also true if and this will be particularly, the closer the district is to Seattle, we're anticipating bigger groups. So one thing that morning, when we do the prep, we're going to kind of help folks figure out, if we do have bigger groups of people, how do you guys work together to split up your time so that it makes sense? We will also see if we're seeing really big groups, if we can get multiple meetings, if possible. But as you know, or you may know, session starts Monday. So this is very early in session, so scheduling has been a little bit challenging just because there wasn't a lot of lead time. But we will do our best with that. Another point that I want to make, some of you may know that there's a difference between the word education and the word lobbying. And if you are a nonprofit, there is technically a restriction on lobbying. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It means you're limited of how much you can do. Let me tell you that the bar for that is so high that there's no way, unless you plan on lobbying a ton this whole year, there's probably no way you're going to ever meet that bar, so you have nothing to worry about. If you're and the line is really, if you are asking specifically for a bill or a budget item, whether it's supporting or opposing, that's where you cross the line. But anything below the line, talking about your program, the youth talking about their program, talking about that, what a difference it's making, talking about the funding sources for your program, all that is allowable for anyone at any time. It's just that making that ask can sometimes, that's the jump into lobbying. And again, almost everyone can do that. And unless you're an organization that's doing that a lot, you really have nothing to worry about. If you at all are concerned about that, I'm happy to chat with you more. And I know Renee Murray at WIDEC, as well as our partners at the Washington Nonprofits Association, are all happy to talk to you further. And maybe not between now and Tuesday, but at some point, if your board or other folks that you are engaging with have concerns, we're happy to chat with them about the legalities around all of that. If you are from a public entity, you do have, again, even another layer of restriction when it comes to the lobbying. But again, sharing the message about your program or why these programs matter is perfectly acceptable, and you can absolutely do that without concern. So if you have any questions, again, please let me know. I want to answer real quick a couple of questions that have come up on our chat box. One is when we'll be getting our schedules. I'm going to talk with our team after to see how feasible it is to send out schedules before Tuesday, but I know that might be a little bit challenging. We'll do our best. I don't think any now are scheduled before 10 a.m. So it shouldn't be a problem if you come early. It's not like you're going to miss a meeting. And if anybody was earlier than that, we would absolutely email you. We're trying to do our best logistically to get out as much information ahead of time as we can, but the meeting schedules might be a little tough. When will they end? I think we're scheduling up until 3 p.m. So nothing will be after 3. Some will be done before. Some of you will be done with your day before 3, and then of course can leave when your meetings are over. But we plan on having everybody out of there no later than 3 p.m. And one other question was just about the presentation right now that you're looking at. I apologize. We're having some technical snafus, and so we couldn't get the slide mode going and see the WebEx information at the same time, which as organizers we really need to see. So I apologize that this is the view that we're looking at right now.
But we will send it out.
Yes, this is being recorded, and we'll send out the PowerPoint and the recording as well. So follow-up, one thing to think about is just because Advocacy Day is over, doesn't mean our advocacy is over. And a good thing to think about with follow-up, if you are just one of those super organized people, one thing to consider is if your youth or your program has anything that they've made, whether it's a picture or a woven basket or something, or a picture of kids in your program, think about bringing that with a little thank you note. That's a perfect leave behind for the office. Ask if you can put them on your mailing list is another great follow-up, or on your social media. Another thing I always tell folks is put a reminder on your calendar to remember to follow up with them. I know many of you are not necessarily policy and advocacy people that plan on doing this a lot, but just telling them when you have an event or want to invite them to something is a good thing to do. So one thing I always do is put a reminder, say, oh, remember to reach out to Senator X, is another good way to remind yourself to follow up. And then again, following up with SOA, the Washington ELO Network, which I'll describe later, and other partners that you have met or are meeting with legislators is a great way to make sure we're all connected and we're all rowing in the same direction.
All right. Are there any questions that we need to answer before we get into the legislative issues?
Question. There's one. Let's see. Yes, we will be organizing additional advocacy. In fact, we will be having an advocacy week at the beginning of each month in February, March, and April, where we are going to do mostly online advocacy, action alerts, and social media around what is happening. So look for information on that. We also will be, if people want to come to Olympia, either can't on Tuesday or want to come at another time, we want to help you do that. We will help set up meetings. We'll do whatever we need to do. So think about that, those first weeks of the month as maybe being a target date to come down. Finally, at least for SOA, we have an every other, in the Washington ELO network, we have an every other week call during session. The first one will be on Wednesday, January 23rd at 9 a.m. We'll be sending out information on that after Advocacy Day. So that's another way to stay apprised. If you really want to be in the know of what's going on in Olympia, that will be the time to do that. We did these last year, and it was great. It's not only a great way to hear what's going on, it's a great way to give me and the other advocates feedback from the field on different things that are moving and how they might impact your programs. They're only a half hour. So it's bite-sized, again, every other Wednesday starting January 23rd.
Cool. So the two legislative issues that we will be advocating for are the DCYF Youth Development Work Group, which I'll be talking about, and then the Career Connected Learning and Expanded Learning framework that David will speak to. So DCYF, or the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, was formed a year ago, 2 years ago?
Started in July. Well, the bill passed.
Yeah. So the whole point of this was to, I guess, improve deep end systems. And the mission of the department was created based on recommendations by the Blue Ribbon Commission on improving services. So it was supposed to have promotion and prevention language underlying the infrastructure of the department, but that strategy, that piece was missing. So we got together with some people from DCYF and put together this language to advocate for a youth development work group that would create a mission, vision, and goals for supporting prevention and promotion for youth ages from 5 to young adulthood, which would be rooted in racial equity and inclusion. So this is supposed to be a sustain the gain from early learning, so to continue on what early learning is doing and for it to not stop at age 5 and to continue that until young adulthood. And so this work group would create the vision and the missions and goals for the department.
And so the work group would be, at least at this point, a temporary work group to help develop this strategy. Mm-hmm. It will include, well, we're working on the legislation. We have champions right now, and it's being developed. The goal is to have youth representation, parent representation, as well as representation from ELO and youth development providers and other stakeholders, including DCYF and OSPI and others. We are also, there's language to have a parallel youth engagement and parent engagement strategy that would also be informing. So we'll have youth and parents on the work group is the goal, but also have a deeper engagement of those two constituencies. Right now, we don't know how all this will be funded. It would be state money, and we also think there could possibly be private money to help with the youth and parent engagement side of it. At the end of the day, why do we think this is important? If prevention and promotion and doing things differently was the goal of starting this new department, then there has to be a coherent strategy to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think the department agrees with us that they alone in a vacuum can't do that. They need the support of many other stakeholders and people on the ground and youth in helping develop that. So we're excited that we will have a bill in both chambers, and it's not ready yet. I'm hoping it will be dropped next week. Probably not by Tuesday, but there's enough meat to the bone that I think we can certainly start and have already been talking about it. One other thing that I want to say is, we put this out for comment in several different places, Washington ELO network meetings, the WIDEC advisory committee. We also have done some racial equity focus groups, and we did an online survey to get a lot of feedback. And we were excited to see a lot of support for this. And just a call. I would say the two things I took away most was really needing to elevate youth and parent voice. So we made some changes to the language that went into the legislature to really emphasize that, and are very committed to that. Do you have anything else, Ekma?
No, that's perfect.
Let me just check questions real quick. Doesn't look like there's any new ones. And again, this is a great time to ask any questions on these policies. But of course, we'll have time on, you'll get some information in your inbox before Tuesday, and then on Tuesday morning, you can certainly ask more. We don't expect anyone on Tuesday to be a deep end expert on either of these. It's just more generally why these things are important. Next, I'll move on to career connected learning. So our state right now is having trouble filling living wage jobs. And in fact, in jobs related to STEM, we rank 49th and 50th in filling our own living wage STEM jobs with our own graduates. The state has started an effort called Career Connected Learning, which is really about getting kids into apprenticeships and internships younger, and youth that we're targeting to get into those opportunities. But one thing that I noticed, both in going to some programs that were doing some career and college exploration activities, was that there's really not a lot of time in the school day, a lot of work being done outside of some pockets to really have kids opening up the possibilities of what different careers could be out there based on their interests. And how do they get there? What are the steps they need to get there? While at the same time working with them to develop employability skills. And if you're wondering what those are, if you look at the definition of social emotional learning skills, and then you look at employability skills, they're pretty much the same thing. It's about perseverance, it's about teamwork, it's about showing up on time, it's about goal setting. All those sorts of things are employability skills, and any high quality youth development or ELO program is doing that already. So they're working on those skills, developing college and career pathways. Another piece that was really missing is every student in our state will be required to complete a high school and beyond plan. And now the high school beyond plan will actually be worked on during middle school. Adding one more thing to the plate of our K-12 system is not advisable, in my humble opinion. And so where else can they work on these plans to actually have them have meaning? To have them be something that is a living, breathing document, as opposed to one thing that they're going to check the box in 8th grade and then never look at again. So as we think about all these different pieces, expanded learning opportunities are the perfect place for career-connected learning to happen. And again, there are pockets, whether you look at Walla Walla or Centralia 21st Century Community Learning Centers, Business After School in Spokane, the Y Scholars Program in Seattle, you see some pockets of this happening. But we want to see, as the state moves into this career-connected learning space, the role that ELOs can play and in giving youth more time to have this college and career exploration. So on the policy level, what does that look like? Well, there is money that's going to be put into career-connected learning this year, and some systematizing of industries working with schools and different intermediaries and the state to try and build more bridges so that kids can have more opportunities to explore different career options. We want to make sure that ELO programs are a part of that, and that kids truly have time to explore their own interests. As we did the racial equity survey and the focus groups, one of the concerns that we heard was, some of you that may be on the older side of life may remember the term tracking, which was tracking youth of color and low-income youth into low-paying professions. We want to make sure that that's not happening with career-connected learning. We also want to make sure that that we're not just funneling kids into STEM jobs, which of course are very important. there's a lot of STEM jobs out there that are high quality, and we need more kids to be interested and engaged in STEM. But we can't sort of move forward if we're going to assume every kid is going to go into STEM. Finally, another thing that we heard and that we're really watching in this work is how do we ensure that existing ELO programs are being utilized in these career-connected learning efforts and not some new program that's disconnected from what's already happening on the ground that may not be culturally responsive. You want to make sure we're using existing infrastructure to support this work. So we're going to fight for a piece of the pie, if you will, make sure ELOs are in there, and making sure that there are some parameters into how we're working with youth in ELO programs.
My favorite thing about this is that it's for middle school youth, right? And a lot of it speaks to exploring interests, so it doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, we're doing this program, so you have to be interested in STEM. It's for middle school students to explore what they're interested in and then move on to that career, I guess.
So we want to make sure that there are tools for programs to access, that there are partnerships built with industries so that there can be mentorships and site visits and things like that for the youth to get to bring a lot of this to life for them. So I think it's a great opportunity for youth and for the ELO field in general. Any questions? Doesn't look like it. So again, if you have any questions on either of those policy areas, let us know. There are other things that both of our organizations, or all three of our organizations, are working on in Olympia this year. And again, those the ELO Quality Initiative being one of them, school-age childcare provider rate increases, student supports broadly and mental health supports for foster youth, adjudicated youth, mentoring. There's a lot of other important things that are going to be happening for children and youth. These are the two that we're focusing on Tuesday, but of course we know that your organizations may care about a lot of different things. So I'm happy to talk through other pieces with you all individually as we have time and on Tuesday, and certainly at any time after Tuesday. And I know, I'm sure Hikma and Renee at WIDEC and Jessica and Michaela and Paula at SOAR are also happy to do that as well. I'm going to leave just one more second, see if there's any other questions from, oh, that was the, it was around the ELO Quality Initiative. Yes, we are working on the ELO Quality Initiative as well, which for those of you that are familiar, it is a state funding to go in to support quality improvement activities for ELO programs. So things like coaching, training, and assessment. We are asking for $2 million for the next biennium, so $1 million a year to continue and increase the areas where we are able to work and increase the number of programs that are able to participate in the quality initiative. We're excited that we've gotten some good momentum both in the House and the Senate on this, as well as private foundations that are showing some interest. So we are continuing to move on that. We will have information on that that day. One reason why it's not the two big issues was because it is a complicated issue. So we are having some targeted meeting and targeted stakeholders that are going to be there to talk more about the quality initiative itself. But one of the feedback that we got last year was that it was complicated, and so we are looking at ways to make that less complicated. And I know our friends in early learning can also speak to the complication of talking about quality. But one thing that you'll see in your packets is information on quality, because quality is such an important element to a program, and is really what helps. What we've heard from the field is that it really gives the field tools to enhance their programming. But Schools at Washington, that is our top priority, and along with many of our other stakeholders. So we will be working on that quite a bit during session. And don't forget that those every other week calls, we will be going into all of these issues as they progress throughout session. And those are public calls.
I think there's another question.
Another question? Sorry, we're just waiting. Our mouse is not wanting. A couple questions. Sorry, we're just a little more. I apologize. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties with getting this. Okay, so how can I connect with different programs in King and Snohomish around career-connected learning and also DCYF? That's a great question. That's something that after the legislative session, I know I will be working on is along with our partners at Washington STEM, who are spearheading a lot of the career-connected work, and Career Connect Washington as well, is how do we support providers to be able to do this work. So right now we're working on the policy side, but we're going to be having some calls and some meetings for interested providers that want to get into this work starting in the spring. And then as far as DCYF, I mean, at this point, that's why this work group is so important. We don't have a natural, when I say we, I mean the ELO field, prevention, youth development, don't have a natural way into the department right now. Thus is why we want to do this work group. There is a lead at DCYF, that's the head of youth engagement there, that is actually going to be at going to speak at our Advocacy Day, Greg Williamson. But his work is really around youth engagement and not necessarily a broader systems-wide strategy. So this is really why we think we really need this work group, and we really want to push for it. So between now and April, we really need your help, everybody on the phone, with making that happen. And then going to the next question.
I think that was all.
Oh. It says career. I'm just going to make sure I didn't miss any questions. I don't think that I did.
Yeah.
So thank you, and please keep having those questions come in. One thing I have to do, my little infomercial on the Washington Expanded Learning Opportunities Network, the ELO network. So our goals are really cross-organizational buy-in on how we work together as different ELO stakeholders, whether you're a provider or a funder or a department or a public agency. It's how we work together to advance this field and what youth need. Building common communication and messaging. And finally, the formulation of our legislative agendas. This network has a steering committee, and we will actually be changing that steering committee after legislative session to include more voices from the field. Right now, we have a lot of statewide advocacy organizations, which is great, but we need more providers. And so I'm going to put that pitch out there if that's something you might be interested in, even if you don't have a lot of advocacy experience. We really want there to be more provider voice for those of you that are providers. So joining the network, again, what do you get? This is just general membership. Your input into formulating the agendas, free trainings and informations, and a free membership to our partners at the National After School Association. Just a note on NAA, they also have trainings and a conference every year. For the paid membership, which that is an option, it's actually a great option if you're a small provider that isn't able to provide healthcare and other kinds of benefits. They actually have benefits that you can pay into at a reasonable rate. So it's a great thing for small and medium-sized providers. Just want to throw that out there. But you can click on that link that is on the PowerPoint that we'll send around, or go out to our webpage, Schools at Washington, and go to the far right, get involved, and you can click on the ELO network. And that little diagram there are the different entities that we're trying to influence. Of course, the legislature and Congress, the public, local electeds, and the state departments that have oversight to the ELO field.
All right, we have come to the end of our webinar. I want to give a few minutes for people that have questions. If you have any questions before we wrap up.
While we're waiting on questions, just to reiterate a few things, doors will open at 8 and breakfast is served at 8 in Olympia on next Tuesday, the 15th. Program starts at 9. Meetings will start happening at 10. We will have breakfast and lunch for you. The parking information has been sent out. We'll send that out again. Make sure any facts that you have about your program, the number of youth, demographics, your outcomes, whether they're academic, social emotional, or other types of outcomes. If you have a wait list, this is kind of a funny one, but it shows need. If you have some sort of a wait list, to make sure you know what that number is. And if you're, just as an aside, if you don't keep a wait list, but you know you have kids that want to get into your program and can't because you don't have the proper staffing or space, that's a really good number to hold on to, whether you're fundraising or whether you're doing advocacy. So be sure to keep a wait list. And again, use that messaging document that Hikma adapted. It's such a great way to think about, if you have trouble really trying to capture what your program does, it's a great way to think through how you can deliver a message. And no fear, we will have training time on Tuesday. So we will be there to work with you all. If you have questions or concerns about meetings with legislators or how to communicate what you're doing or any of that, we are happy to talk through and think through.
I think we have a few questions.
Looks like we have a few questions. Go up. Okay, just we have one. If we are bringing youth, what time do you recommend arriving? I still think at 8. I mean, as early as possible. Well, also, just as because part of the training, when we break out the training that day, Michaela is actually going to lead the youth training. So if the youth are comfortable being separated from their their adult program folks, Michaela, who does this work all the time, is going to be giving them a training to get them comfortable with telling their story and that sort of thing.
In the same room.
In the same room, yes.
Yeah, we're not
taking them away.
Yeah. We'll all be in the same room, just kind of split up. Just so you know, another group will be King County focused groups. Will be with Hikma and Renee, and then non-King County folks will be with Sierra and I. So that's kind of how we're going to split up that morning for a variety of reasons.
I do want to say, if you are bringing young people, please make sure they are all registered, or if you have staff coming, make sure every single person coming is registered.
We want you to have food.
Yes.
And a meeting to go to.
Right. Other than that, if you have any questions, feel free to email any of us on, or I guess the emails that are up there, but feel free to email me or Sierra for any other questions as well. If you have other legislators outside of your district that you want to meet with, let us know, and we can try to figure out a schedule that works for you and the legislator that you want to meet with.
One other thing I'll say, because I've gotten this question, is, can we bring non-providers and non-youth, meaning other like parents or other friends of yours that might be interested in coming? Absolutely. And I'll be real blunt, we're struggling right now with non-King County attendees. So would love more folks from the other 38 counties. We do have some, but we would like to see that number beefed up, and we're working on outreach on that right now, but would love your help. So if you have other people that might want to come down. And again, if they can't come down Tuesday, then asking them maybe if they could come in one of the future weeks. I will set everything up for them. I will be there with them. Happy to do that. So keep thinking that through. And we have another question. So as we were saying, we'll do our best to see if we can get the appointments in advance, but we might not be able to. If there's, for some reason, there was an appointment before 10 a.m., we will definitely make sure we have that to you. It's just logistically, we are still scheduling so many meetings that we might not be able to get them out prior to Tuesday. But since they'll all be most will be after 10 a.m., it shouldn't be a problem because you'll get them. And again, all meetings will be done by 3. So they'll all be sometime between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m.
Yes, and that information will be in your packet which, speaking of, we will also be giving you extra packets for the legislator that you will be meeting with. So each group or each district will have 3 folders for each of their legislators, and it'll have everything you'll be talking about and a little more maybe. But so those will be for you to leave with legislators, and every single one of you will also have a packet or a folder with everything you need, so including the framework for career-connected learning, FAQs for both both policies that we'll be talking about, the what is youth development definition. What else will be in there? Oh, the handy guide and anything else that you will need for that day, including your schedule for your meetings, will all be in there.
One other thing that I'll say is that for the downtime, because there is going to be downtime while you're there, we collected information on how to do Capitol tours. There's also a lovely gift shop, and there is free Wi-Fi. So, just to throw all that out there between meetings, like, oh, what am I going to do? Well, any of those things are certainly options, and also continue to talk with us about your pitch and those sorts of things, or what you learned in a meeting. All that can happen when there is downtime between meetings. And of course, food. Do you have any other questions? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Yes, there is a number and several numbers that we'll put out. We'll make sure we have the pertinent cell phone numbers. You will have that for questions day of. And we all also, I think, all have email on our phone, and we'll be checking that vigorously that day as well. So, we will have plenty of options. And for me, my cell phone number will be on there. Please feel free on Monday, anytime, when I say anytime, I mean truly anytime, even if it's 10 o'clock at night on Monday, you can text me with questions and thoughts, and I want to make sure that gets answered. And I'll be up very early. I'm an early bird, luckily, and so I'll be up very early on Tuesday morning as well. So if you're not. Let me look one more time for questions. Oh, yeah. We will send out this webinar and other information. Oh, wow, we got a lot of questions. Thank you, Susan Broom. You're taking a bus. Why don't you email? I don't know of many buses that are coming down, so I think we would have to look in on that. I know there's going to be a little bit of logistical stuff because of the governor's State of the State address. I know one of the diagonals, if any of you are familiar with the Capitol, one of the diagonals is going to be closed off, which of course limits parking, and buses can get pre-approval, I believe, but there's also other places buses can drop off. So if you would send me one of us a separate email, we will figure that out.
I think that is Marissa from Northgate Elementary, so I can reach out to her.
Okay. Yeah. So Hikmat can help you with that, and I can get you Jennifer information, and we can figure that out. I think that's all the questions.
All right.
Well, woohoo! Here we go. Youth Development ELO. This day keeps growing and evolving every year. We will have feedback. One thing that is super helpful is you notice, whether it's the prep or the day of, notice things that maybe we can improve on, because we want to make this better and better every year. Huge thanks to Sierra, our AmeriCorps Vista, who's helping us a lot on this day. And we're so excited to see you there.
Yeah, thank you for joining our prep webinar, and we will see you on Tuesday.
Bye.